So we've seen how Greek adjectives change their forms to give us their case number and gender. Okay, that's all morphology. Now comes the fun part. Now we get to actually fly them. We get to look at them in context and see how they behave. Never fear, we will not crash. I won't let it happen. We'll take off and we will see that there are three primary patterns of flight. There are three ways that adjectives are used. This is true in Greek and in English. And we'll see that those three ways are attributively, substantively, and predicatively. I know, big nasty words, but don't worry. We just recently came over Tioga Pass in Yosemite, and we just so happened to hit the summit right as there was this rainbow over Tenaya Lake and this light show in the sky. So it was amazing. So let me just use that picture to illustrate these three uses of the adjective. Okay, attributive adjectives attribute some quality to a noun. This is the most common, easiest way to think of an adjective. So I might look at that and say, wow, that is an inspirational view. So inspirational is my adjective. It modifies view. It attributes a quality to the view. So it's an attributive adjective, okay? Now the second way that adjectives are used is that sometimes they actually stand in for the nouns. They imply the noun, but there is no noun stated, so they act like as if they are a noun. So I might say, wow, I thrive on the inspirational. The inspirational what? Inspirational view in this case, but see, inspirational is still an adjective, but in this sentence it's acting like a noun. I thrive on the inspirational. The inspirational, the subject is not named. The adjective stands in the place of the subject and implies a certain subject, but it leaves it to our mind to fill in the blank. So that is the substantival use of the adjective. The final way that the adjective is used is called the predicate use. And this is when you have a to be verb. I am, you are, she was, whatever. A to be verb in Greek or in English. So I might say, wow, the view is inspirational. Hear the word is? So I'm saying this view is, and then some adjective, inspirational in this case. So in the predicate use, we have a form of to be. In your little Greek grammar, you can find this table where I summarize what I just said to you, but we have our attributive adjectives, which attribute some quality to a noun. For example, the good man, good, telling us about the man. We have our substantival adjectives, which stand in for nouns. And so, for example, God rewards the good. The good what? The good elephants. No, probably not elephants. It's assumed by the context here that you can know what the noun is. Good people, right? Or predicate adjectives where you have some form of to be. So, for example, God is good. We're predicating or telling something about God with this to be verb. God is good. Now, sometimes the Greek word order will be exactly like English, and we will be ever so grateful. We would do article, adjective, noun, right? The good man. Okay, and sometimes that's how it happens in Greek. Ha, agathos, anthropos. But much more commonly, Greeks would do things differently. So, for example, here's a very common pattern. Ha anthropos, ha agathos. Now, a literal word-for-word translation would be the man, the good. That doesn't make any sense to us in English, and it shows you why like a word-for-word translation is really not possible. But this is a very common way that Greeks would express attributive adjectives. It would be like article, noun, article, adjective. The man, the good. Ha anthropos, ha agathos. And it's worth noting that attributive adjectives usually have the article. So for example, up here we have not just ha anthropos agathos, but ha anthropos ha agathos. This adjective has the article. Normally, attributive adjectives have the article. Here's a nice, easy example of some attributive adjectives here in Matthew 12. The good man, ha agathos anthropos. Nice. It follows English word order exactly. The good man, right? Out of, ek, to agathu, thesaurou, the good treasure in this case. To agathu, the good, thesaurou, treasure. So again, article, adjective, noun, very nice. But these are just easy examples of attributive adjectives. Again, they're attributing some quality to a noun. In your color-coded text, here's a great example of an attributive adjective. He was the light, the true. Okay, the true light, right? Which enlightens every man. Taphos ta'alethanan. There's that pattern. Just to point out that we don't always have the article with attributive adjectives, here's another one that this one will be baptizing in pneumati hagio. So holy here is our adjective modifying the spirit. Notice that they match in case, number, and gender, but not declension. Hagio, remember, is a 2-1-2, but pneumati, we're looking at a third declension noun. The substantival adjective is used when the subject is not expressed. Okay, so the noun is thought to be so obvious that it's not even said. So for example, in this sentence, the diligent will do well in this class. Diligent what? Well, diligent ice cubes? Diligent bananas? No, obviously, diligent students, right? So the substantival adjective is the adjective where there is no noun. There's no noun to modify. Well, there is, but it's in your head, you see. So the adjective winds up acting like the noun in the sentence. That's a substantival adjective. Here's another example. The righteous are treated better than the sinful. Righteous what? Righteous birds? No, people, right? Okay, but it's not expressed because it's thought to be so obvious. Or if you're a Clint Eastwood fan, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Good, bad, ugly cowboys in this case. But again, it's not expressed, and the adjective winds up filling in for the noun. Those are substantival adjectives. Well, Greek is exactly the same. When the subject is thought to be obvious, often they will just use an adjective and not even say the subject. So, for example, you might say, the good will live. The good what? Well, the good man. Or the good will live, or the good will live. Hey, and do you see something interesting, different between English and Greek here? In English, if I say the good will live, there's only one form of good, right? But in Greek, look, what's happening to these endings? Agathos, agathe, agathai. Well, they're morphing, right? To match the implied subject. So if I said ha'agathos zese, that means the good masculine subject. So in this case, probably man, see? So it's a masculine singular. Or if I said, hey agathe zese, well, that's a feminine, so it would imply a feminine subject. So like, the good woman will live. Or, oops, I have a mistake here. This should be hi agathai. The good women, hi agathai zese. So do you see that, how this would be plural? Because here's the plural form. So here's a great example of how Greek, with all of its case, number, gender, switching around all this morphing by very consistent patterns, right? So we're not freaking out, but it gives you information about the implied subject, where lots of times, like English, because it doesn't morph, it just, it doesn't give you any information, so you just have to guess. It's an example of where Greek is a bit more specific than English. John 1 is just full of substantival adjectives, so we'll just look there. Look in verse 3 here. Panta di autu egeneta. Panta, remember, is from pos. It means all or every. So what form is this? It's the neuter plural, right? And in this case, it's the subject. But that's why when we translate this, we know that it's all things. Literally, it just says, all through him came to be. But because it's a neuter choice there, we know it's not all men or all women. We know it's all things. It's speaking very generally there. You see how powerful it is to recognize the case, number, and gender of every substantive. Well, and then we see another example here. Apart from him came to be not even hen, not even one. Not even one what? Well, same subject. All things. Here it's not even one thing. If you'll remember your paradigm for hen, we're talking about a neuter, not even one. So again, one thing. We know he doesn't mean not even one man or woman. It's not a masculine or a feminine subject implied by this adjective. We know that it's neuter, so that's why we fill in the word thing. In verse 7, we see another use of pos. Jesus came in order that, hina, pontes, pistiusosin, might believe. Okay, all what? Well, pontes, do you remember that ending there, pontes? This is a masculine or feminine plural. So in this case, people, right? So here we're not talking about all things believing in him, but because it's turned to masculine and feminine, we're talking about people. Probably this is masculine, of course, because, back in the first century, they hadn't learned about gender equality yet. But men refers to men and women, right? So we get that. Here's kind of an interesting one in verse 11. It says that Jesus came eis ta idia, into his own things. Now, most people will translate like to his own people or something like that, but because this is neuter, it probably is more of a reference to like God coming into the world, God coming into creation, his own things, not necessarily like unto his own people. The implied subject here, in other words, is neuter. So that's interesting. He came to his own things. It's like God coming into creation. I think that's the idea here. And then look at this one. And his own, idioi, now notice that it changed. Hoi idioi. Now we're looking at a masculine plural right down here. So we're talking about his own people, probably here. So anyway, it's just notice, first of all, that there's no subject. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. Okay, so the subjects are implied, and the gender gives us a little bit of a clue about what those implied subjects might be. Of course, we don't get that in English. So repeat the important things, right? Okay, attributive adjectives attribute some quality to a noun. Substantival adjectives actually stand in for nouns. And predicate adjectives predicate something about a noun. That is, they use some form of to be to tell us something about the noun. So in English, it might be something like, the man is good. Do you see how man here and good are being connected by this to be verb is, man is good. Or here we have, that ice cream was delicious. So here we have the ice cream being tied together with delicious by the verb was. Now, this is no great mystery in Greek. It's exactly the same way. So you might have ha anthropos estin agathos. The man is good. And again, that would be very nice because the word order follows English exactly. And notice the to be verb here is expressed. But I want you to see this, that very often in Greek, if the to be verb is thought to be obvious, they'll just leave it out. So they might say ha anthropos agathos. And the idea is left out, but it's implied. Ha anthropos agathos. So how will you know whether to supply this to be verb or not? Well, context will have to tell you, but here's another great clue. The predicate adjective never has the article. So if we look back at our example, ha anthropos agathos, you would not ever see ha anthropos ha agathos and have it mean the man is good. No, because if there is an article before the adjective, it's never a predicate adjective. So it would look like this. The man, ha anthropos agathos. No article means there's a very good chance you need to supply a form of to be. Let's look at a couple of these in context. I think it will help. Here's a good one. Take a look at this little phrase right here. Salt is good. But now look how Greek says this. Kalon means good. Ta, the, of course, and halos is salt. Good, the salt. Okay, here's our adjective, right? Kalon. And notice there's no article. And so we supply our to be verb. And it's pretty clear from the context we need to. If I said good salt, well, that sounds like attributive. If I said good the salt, in English that sounds just really weird. But in Greek, they're emphasizing the goodness by bringing the word to the front. Salt is good, okay? But they say it kalon ta halas, good the salt. But we supply the to be verb because it's needed. And again, there's no article, so that's a good clue that this is a predicate adjective. Here's another good example. Sorry for the pun there. Not very funny. No one good. Ou des agathos. Ou is not, and remember, hes miahin is one, so no one agathos. No one good. Now, there's no article here, and it's pretty obvious we need a form of to be. So, no one is good. This is a predicate adjective. Here's one from Timothy. We know that kalos ha namas. Kalos means good again, and ha namas is the law. Good, the law. No, there is no article here modifying kalos, and it's obvious from the context that we need the law is good here. So kalos ha namas. Good, the law. The law is good. Here we have one last instance of good. Notice kalan. Okay, what's good this time? Pon. Hopefully you recognize that as a form of pos, right? An adjective, right? So all ktisma, creation, that's what that means, of God, genitive form, right? Theou. So we supply the word of. Pon ktisma theou kalan. All creation of God good. Well, here's our adjective. There is no article, and it's pretty obvious that we need a form of to be. This is another predicate adjective. So that's it. You understand Greek adjectives. Amazing, isn't it? And if you understand Greek adjectives, you're well on your way to understanding all Greek substantives. Now, in the case of adjectives, we've seen that they follow 4 patterns, right, to show us their case, number, and gender. This is morphology. This is just the way the words change shape to give us case, number, and gender. Remember the 4 patterns. We have the 2-1-2 pattern, the 3-1-3 pattern, the 2-2 pattern, and the 3-3 pattern. That's the morphology. In this video, we looked at the syntax, which is just how the words behave to give meaning, how they come together to give meaning. And we have seen that there are 3 primary ways that adjectives are used in Greek or English. They can be used attributively, where they attribute some quality to a noun. They can be used substantively, where they stand in for a noun. And they can be used predicatively, where they predicate something or tell us something about a noun. All right, on to pronouns. And what you're about to see is that pronouns follow all the same patterns. So you really already know all of the morphology of pronouns because it will be exactly like the adjectives, which is really sweet, right? So this is one impressive take on. You are mastering Greek faster than you can imagine.